Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. And today we've got the big IPL auction preview. I say big preview. It is a big preview, but for a mini auction. And what mini auctions tend to bring is fewer players and larger prices. So I think in previous videos, which you can definitely check out, we've talked about the retention lists for each team, who they've decided to retain, who they've decided to release. And this will kind of inform our opinions on what teams should look for. And also, we just kind of, I don't know, mention players that we're excited about that we think will fetch high prices. So, yeah, we're all very excited for the IPL. If you want to check out our live stream of the IPL auction, that will be on the 23rd of December, which is Friday, at 9 a.m. UK time or 2:30 Indian time. That is the 23rd of December, 2:30 IST, 9 a.m. GMT. Be there. Okay, so without further ado, don't forget to subscribe. And Benji, what are you most excited for with this auction?
Oh, it's just the IPL auction, James. It's the most exciting day of the year. That's not true, but it's a very exciting day of the year. One thing what I really think about this IPL auction is it's going to be a overseas player fest because in the whole of the auction, there's only 19 capped players from India who've listed themselves in the auction. Now, and that's out of 405 players. So, we're either going to see for those, filler Indian spots, there's going to be some, high up for grabs, high priority people there. Now, names that come to mind, we've got Mayank Agarwal, and Manesh Pandey in there as well. But Mayank Agarwal obviously left the Punjab Kings. I think he's going to be someone that's going to go for quite a fair bit of cash. I also think that Jodev Anadkat potentially might be in there with a shout as well. I think he's done quite well recently in domestic cricket, and CSK are going to be ruining the day that they released him. Although I think he actually was at Mumbai last year. He's never played for CSK once. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about someone else completely, but I forgot who it was. So that was a load of rubbish anyway, wasn't it? Somebody else talk.
I'm excited to see which leg spinners get bought because there are some teams that are missing leg spinners because it used to, I don't know, before the 10 teams, when it was 8 teams, every team had a leg spinner and they added that bit of mystery. Whereas now there's a lot more options within the teams for leg spinners. For example, Sunrisers Hyderabad don't have like an out-and-out leggy who you would say, yes, he's a world-class leg spinner. Unlike someone like RCB with Hasaranga or Delhi Capitals with Kuldeep Yadav. I know he's a left arm leg spinner, but it's the same thing. And there are a few who are available to be picked up. For example, Adam Zampa, Adil Rashid, who have quite high base prices in terms of getting picked up. But there is one person in that list who we all know as Rian Ahmed. He's in the list to be picked up, right? Only a reserve price of 40 lakh. So he could be a cheap last-minute leg spin buy overseas player for certain teams. So there's some exciting leg spinners out there. And yeah, looking forward to see who picks them up.
Interesting about Rehan Ahmed because he's now will have to be promoted, won't he, from a uncapped to a capped player. If we think about that as well.
I feel like that's the sort of move that Mumbai Indians would make. A young player, talented leggy. He's got a lot of time ahead of him. I feel like that's the sort of direction they'd go.
Yeah, I also think, we did, if you want to check out our Instagram, it's at Cricket Nerds Pod, because we did, it was mostly me, to be completely honest. It was some players that I thought each team might buy and might target. And for Sunrisers, I did mention a few spinners. One of them was Sikandar Raza, because in the past we've seen Sunrisers go down the Afghanistan route. They had Rashid Khan and they had Mohammad Nabi, who were both handy with the bat and could bowl very economical spells. And Sikandar Raza kind of fits the bill. He had an amazing T20 World Cup, really boosted his stocks. And he strikes at 130 and he's got an economy of 7.27, average under 30. So he's definitely an option for them. I'd like to get your opinions, but Sunrisers have the biggest purse. So I think it's going to be between them and likely Punjab, maybe some of the others, but those are the most likely to get the most expensive purchase. So that's my opinion. I think Punjab will probably get the most expensive purchase because they'll be looking for either a Ben Stokes or a Sam Curran, I think.
They also every year make the biggest purchase.
Well, a lot of years they do, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get what your opinions are. Who do you think is going to make which team is going to make the most expensive purchase for one player?
Well, I reckon Punjab are going to pick up Cameron Green for a lot of money because Cameron Green just screams to me a Punjab player. And then what will happen is Cameron Green will have a terrible first year in the IPL, get released a year later, then get picked up by RCB, and he will go on to be one of the best players in the whole league. Which is exactly how it's going to happen. We've seen it before, and I have no doubt that we'll see it again. It's either going to be he or potentially Rajasthan Royals coming in to pick up Ben Stokes again. Ben Stokes was at Rajasthan for a number of years, wasn't able to be retained because he withdrew from the IPL last year, but I could see someone like Rajasthan going back to what they know. Similarly, I predict Sam Curran to CSK. Just because, again, CSK, it's their tried and tested model. They like what they know, and I think Sam Curran fits that. So that's where I think those three will go. Zach,
CSK also need to backfill DJ Bravo, who has been there since the dawn of time itself. So, it's that's a big hole they need to fill, and a death bowler who can bat very nicely is Sam Curran. So I definitely think that CSK will spend a lot of money trying to get Sam Curran. Whether they will end up with him is another matter, because if you think Sunrisers actually do have like 40 crore or something to spend, and I can definitely see a reality where they spend heinous money on 2 overseas players and then have very little left for like the other 10 players that they need to buy for their squad or something. I don't know. What do you think, Zach?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Sam Curran for CSK because he's played there before. So I agree. I think they'll be looking to target him. Fits that Dwayne Bravo role very nicely. In terms of Sunrisers, I don't see them going for Sam Curran. They might put an early bid in, but I don't see them going for that because when you look at Sunrisers bowling, it's quite strong because they've got Natarajan, they've got Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, they've got Marco Janssen, who I'm sure will be just going from strength to strength. They've got Umran Malik, probably the most exciting bowler, the most talked about bowler when the IPL comes around just because of raw pace. So they've got the bowling there. They've even got Washington Sundar, who's a very, really good spinner. I think what they're looking for is good Indian batsmen because they've got Aidan Markram and Glenn Phillips, and we know they're good, but they're lacking in the Indian batsmen. They've got Rahul Tripathi and Abdul Samad, and that's about it. So I can see Sunrisers actually spending quite a lot of money on Mayank Agarwal, trying to bolster their batting and potentially have that captaincy option as well, because they're lacking that experience in the Indian batsmen.
I think the issue with that, though, is that there's not that much like India batting experience in the auction. Like there's a lot of sort of uncapped players. Now, a lot of these uncapped players, one of them being Manesh Pandey, has got a lot of experience when it comes to the IPL. We've sort of got, Manesh Pandey and Mandeep Singh are the two who are a bit lower down in the auction who could come and do that job as well. But seeing as, Manesh Pandey, I mean, he was released by Lucknow, I think it was, but has played at Sunrisers previously. So again, they know Pandey, they know what he's like, and I think potentially we could see Pandey over to there as well. There are a couple more players that I'm sort of excited about, and again, this comes from a bit of a England bias potentially, but just in the first auction category, we've got Harry Brook and Joe Root, and another player that I am excited about as well is Riley Russo. I think again we could see some teams bidding big on those areas. Potentially, a Riley Russo might be quite a good pick for someone like Sunrisers who have a big purse. But I don't know, something about Riley Russo just screams Mumbai Indians. I don't know why, but he just seems like a Mumbai Indians type of player.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
South African thing.
Yeah. Intangibly, somewhat, he is a very Mumbai Indians player to pick. But when I look at Mumbai, their actual lineup, I think they've got an incredibly strong core. Now, let's not forget they had a horrible season last season, but I think that's mostly because of their squad selection and potentially form of players. But if we just go through, think about the players that they can play this season. They'll open with Rohit and Ishan Kishan. They then have the option of maybe DeWalt Brevis or Tilak Varma in at 3. We'll almost certainly have Surya Kumar Yadav at 4.
Yeah.
And then the other one of DeWalt or Tilak Varma at 5. We're then looking at Tim David at 6. Who else can we have? Tristan Stubbs. We could chuck him in if we feel like it.
Yeah.
And Jofra Archer. Then we've got all of our overseas and incredibly strong batting up to 8. And then, some of the best bowlers who they can choose. The bowling at the moment, which includes Jasprit Bumrah, of course. So, already they've got a very strong team. I think Zach, you might have mentioned it earlier that they'll be wanting some spinners, particularly a leg spinner. Now, they did just release Mike Markandi, who is one of the few Indian spinners that's actually on the market that hasn't been retained. Because if you think of the best leg spinners at the moment in India, they've all kind of been retained. Best spinners in general. Like we've got, I think the ones in the auction now, like Amit Mishra, Mayank Markandi, and I'm struggling to think of another one. It's a relatively low standard of spinner that's left in the auction. So I could see them going for an overseas, which again, we go back to the Zampas, the Adil Rashids.
Yeah,
and more.
They also released Murugan Ashwin too. So they left him out because he played 8 games for them last year. And yeah, they've left him out again this year.
That being said, I can see Mumbai Indians picking an unknown Indian spinner that they've had a good look at because they're used to doing that. You think of Mayank Markande and Rahul Chahar, who started at Mumbai and became good at Mumbai, and I think you can see Mumbai Indians doing that. And you'll always have good Indian spinners. I think we need to recognize that there's not going to be there's not a lack of them in the Indian domestic circuit. So there's always going to be Indian options, but I think they even though they've got 5 overseas options already, getting that overseas spinner in means that, because I don't think they're going to play more than one of Brevis and Stubbs. I don't see that happening. So yeah, having that extra option of an overseas spinner would definitely be a benefit.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Zach. Sorry, especially when they've got 3 overseas slots as well. So they can pick up sort of a big ticket player in that as well. They've got scope to do that too.
Yeah.
So what were you saying?
I was going to say, do we think Ajinkya Rahane is going to get picked up? Because he's not been great over the last few IPL seasons. Maybe Sunrisers Hyderabad, given their lack of Indian batsmen, maybe he'll go to them just out of necessity. Because he's listed at quite a high base price. He's in that top bracket of what is it, 2 crore?
Yeah, no, but he's only listed himself at 50 crore.
He's 50 crore, 50 lakh, isn't it?
50 lakh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. But so he might get picked up, maybe as a bit of an experience. I don't know.
I've identified a potential pick for Mumbai. When you mentioned like somewhat unknown Indian spinners that they might have scouted, I was thinking I'm sure there was a spinner that did well in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, which, if you don't know, is the Indian T20 domestic tournament. And right, what's his name? Malani. Okay, Shams Malani, who is 25 years old. He has played for Delhi Capitals in the past. I don't know if he was ever actually played for them. But he, in this latest edition of the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, played 10 matches. 39 overs were bowled by him. He took 16 wickets, an economy of 6.51, average 15.87. He was the 4th highest wicket taker, and the rest were all seamers. So it was a bit of a seamers tournament this year, and he is a potential option that Mumbai could go for. Now I'm going back a little ways to when Benji was talking about who might go for Ben Stokes, because you said Rajasthan. And I'm inclined to disagree with you, actually.
No, okay.
Even though I put it on my Instagram as well, I did say Ben Stokes could be picked up. But the more I look at the Rajasthan lineup and the retained players that they chose to keep, the more I see that there is no real space for Ben Stokes in the role that he would do best. Yeah. Because if we think that they've got Jaiswal, Padikkal, and Butler, and Sanju Samson, who are all top 3 players, and they've got 4 of them, and they kind of struggled with them last year. Having Ben Stokes in there as well, admittedly, he could slot into that number 5 slot maybe, but is that where you're going to do where he's going to do best? And when he really thrived for Rajasthan was at the top of the order or number 3. So I don't think Rajasthan will go for him, because I think it would just cause them headaches. A team that I do think could go hard for them would be the Lucknow Supergiants. Because if we cast our minds way back to when rising Pune Supergiants were a thing, the owner was a huge Ben Stokes fan, splashed out the cash for Stokes at that time. And I could see Lucknow really going hard for Ben Stokes. That being said, I'm fully expecting Punjab to spend a horrendous amount of money on it.
I think Lucknow Supergiants also kind of have their top 3, because they've got Quinton de Kock, they've got KL Rahul, they've also got Marcus Stoinis, who's a top order player, Kyle Mayers as well. But I guess,
but they were playing Manish Pandey, weren't they, at 3? True. So there could be a gap there.
I guess with all the teams, it doesn't matter what team you have. If you've got Ben Stokes in there, that's an extra factor, isn't it? He won the World Cup for England twice. He's England's test captain. He brings a lot of experience. He's just on a different plane to every other cricketer in the world, really, at the moment, in terms of what he offers with everything. The only cricketer I can think who's maybe similar is Hardik Pandya, who offers the captaincy experience, the fielding, the batting, the bowling, everything. So he's one of those players that it doesn't really matter which team picks him up, whatever team has the most money. So I agree. I think Punjab Kings, they're definitely going to have a go at him. And that will give them Bairstow, Livingston, Stokes, and Rabada, which as 4 overseas players is pretty handy, really.
That's really good. There is one team that I'm really concerned about coming into this auction, and that's Kolkata Knight Riders, because I'm not sure how they've managed it, but Kolkata have a squad of only 14 players, yet they've got the lowest salary cap available. They've managed to spend 87 crore, I think it is, on 14 players. They've only got 5 overseas in there. They've only got a salary cap available of 705 lakh coming into the auction, and they've got a lot of spaces to fill. Now, they've recruited quite well in terms of trades from various different sides. They've managed to bring in Shardul Thakur, Ramdala Gurbaz, and Lockie Ferguson. But they've spent a lot of money in the process. So I think they might struggle in actually completing their squad. Like, I'd be surprised if we see them with 20, 23 players in there, unless they really go hard on the sort of uncapped Indian talent. But yeah, I'm interested to think, what is your guys' view on the what can Kolkata do coming into this auction?
I think what you see with Kolkata is what they tried to do last year, which is they tried to have a really strong first 11, and then everyone else kind of slotted in. They had the smallest squad last year as well. And I think what we saw last season was the difference between Kolkata Knight Riders and Gujarat Titans is, you look at it on paper, Kolkata Knight Riders had the strongest first 11. However, they weren't in form. We think about how badly Chakravarti did, how badly Venkatesh Iyer did. These players who had done so well for them the previous season. And you look at a team like Gujarat Titans, who on paper don't seem that great, and we all rated them to not do very well. They end up winning because everyone's in form. And so I think it comes down to, well, yes, Kolkata Knight Riders seem to have their first 11 sorted. They've got some very good players in there, especially with Shardul Thakur coming in. That's a massive bonus for them. But are they going to be all in form? And do they have the money to get those backup players who are going to do well for them? Because I think you're right, Benj. They're not in the best position in terms of feeding those backup players in.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I'm also looking at, and I do want to come on to Gujarat next, but looking at KKR, you're right, absolutely right. They've retained a very strong core, even though they have left themselves with very little money. But if you think about what Rajasthan ended up doing last year, was do you remember right at the end when they were kind of cycling back through the players that went unsold, saying, "Hey, last orders, do you guys want to pick these up?" They then very quickly picked up, I think it was like Daryl Mitchell and Jimmy Neesham and a couple of others, and they are very good players that went very cheaply. I think that same thing could happen with KKR. That, like, if you think of the actual quantity of people that there are on the auction list, there are incredible players that could very easily just fly under the radar. Like, if I just look really quickly now, I've scrolled down to kind of like sets 20, and I'm looking at players like Harry Tector for Ireland. But even more mainstream than that, like Jason Roy, Chris Lynn, Brandon King, Reza Hendricks. These are all top order players, and like, thinking even more English based, like Phil Salt, obviously a bit higher, but Will Jacks, Will Smeed. These are players that have proven themselves to be really good, and if KKR need a bit more top order backup, which I think they do because they've got rid of Finch and Hales, then they can just, kind of, I imagine they can get some players on the cheap. Like we mentioned Rian Ahmed as well. He's another one that, could very easily go unsold, and then they can just be like, well, we've got tons of places, and we can spend 50 lakh on an overseas uncapped lad like him. And I really think the options are open for them. But yeah, let's move on to Gujarat. How do we rate them now? Because we've seen what they can actually do. We were all horribly wrong last time about how they'd perform. So how do we think they'll do this time? And what do you think they'll do in the auction?
I don't think they'll do as well unless they pick up certain players. Because again, on paper, I don't necessarily rate them. Like Matthew Wade, I don't see him being a match winner for them. I think they've got Rashid Khan. That's their key to winning. That's the player they build their team around, because he can bowl teams out. He hardly goes for runs, and he's got dutty wrists with the bat, which gets sixes from absolutely nowhere. So yeah, I can see like he's a massive factor for them. They've also got David Miller, who did so well last season. So those two were kind of the linchpins for them. They were and Hardik Pandya as well, of course. Those three were kind of the main players for them. It's just, can the other players stand up like they did last year? And so I think what they're missing is maybe another slightly high-profile Indian player, and I think also a higher profile overseas option. I'm not sure. Do they have the purse to maybe go about getting those players?
I think they've got a fair amount in there. They've got a solid 19 crore to go on, so they can splash out. I think there are a few other names in there though that they've just got players who continually can turn a game around. I'm thinking about Mohammad Shami. If he has a good opening spell, he can win a game. Somebody like Raul Tavatia, who can look very, very, very average, but then can do something wonderful and win a game. So there are some pieces there that can come together that they could, perform. Again, I'm not sure whether they'll be at that highest level as they were last year. It will depend on, how they get on in the auction.
Yeah, my last thing on Gujarat Titans is that they have lots of overseas options in this auction that they could go for, which would provide a massive boost for them. Like, I feel like a Harry Brook is the sort of player who would fit in well at Gujarat Titans. Maybe Shakib Al Hassan, even with his all-round options. So there's lots of options for them. It'll be interesting to see how they build it, because they built their team in a completely different way to all the other teams last year, and they won. So
we'll move on. I just want to talk about how you think RCB are going to do, Zach. Because obviously they've retained their core, which is incredibly strong. We're still looking at players that are proven match winners. Faf at the top of the order. Potentially Glenn Maxwell, hopefully recovers in time. And Hasaranga, Hazelwood, Kohli, ridiculously talented squad. What do you think they're going to be looking for in the auction?
Well, RCB have, along with DC, have picked up the most overseas players. They've got six overseas slots already filled, so they've only got 2 left, which, as we've talked about with other teams, they might be able to pick up 2 good players relatively late on in the auction, when all the other teams like Punjab Kings have splashed all their cash on the main people. And I think what they'll be looking for in these overseas players is backup players, because we saw it last year. RCB's overseas core is really strong. I think the thing for RCB is whether Dinesh Karthik can rediscover that form of last year, because that was massive for us. And so I think we need to be looking at Indian finishing options to kind of take over that role, just in case he's not up to scratch. And also maybe an Indian player to open the batting, because I know we've used Anand Rawat, who didn't have the best season last year. However, he's only young, so there's obviously work to be done there. So yeah, maybe an Indian opener, maybe a young Indian finisher, and then an overseas bowler. I would say an overseas fast bowler to replace Jason Berendorf, because we liked having Jason Berendorf in the squad. He was that point of difference, a bit tall. You could replace Hazelwood. It's just he wasn't getting in the main team, which is why I left. So I think RCB will be looking for a similar sort of option there.
I think a couple of people that scream RCB to me. I think actually Sikandar Raza is sort of RCB type of pick. I don't know why, but he just screams to me like it's someone that RCB would pick up. He had a really good World Cup, didn't he? And he's really put his name forward to be a star. And I think he can almost sit there as that replacement for Hasaranga if needed, because he impressed with both bat and ball. And actually, I think KS Barrett as well is somebody that might be on RCB's radar. He's been with them previously, and he could do that Indian opening the batting type of role.
What about CSK? So I could see CSK going for Harry Brook, first of all. I can see him being a very CSK pick. We've already mentioned CSK going for Sam Curran, but somebody else I want to float out the idea of is Reece Topley, because we haven't really mentioned him, but he was England's #1 bowler for a little bit. Just before the World Cup, we were, really expecting him to do great things. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. He got injured, but he will be back for the IPL. What do you think of that?
The thing about Reece Topley is I'm not sure where he'd fit into the team, because almost all of the overseas spots are nailed on already, with Devon Conway as your opener, Moeen Ali is sort of your top order, and Tashanka as the spinner, because he was just so class last year. And then if they do pick up somebody like Sam Curran, that's all the spots there and then. I'm hoping that CSK don't go down the route of getting Chris Jordan again. It is something that I see that they could possibly try to do as well. Whether they'll target somebody like Reece Topley, I don't know, because he'd definitely be in there as sort of a backup player. There are a few other bits of Indian talent that I think that they could go for, but I want to save all that for Friday for that excitement then. Let's move on. And Zach, do we have any Cricket Nerds questions?
We do indeed. We have quite a few today. So let's get through them. There are some which are linked to the current England versus Pakistan series, which we have been following. So I might save one for them. But we got one that is specifically targeted at you, Benji. It's from the legend of the game, PD. The man himself, who says, Benji, do you reckon CSK will transform their dad's 11 to a younger 11? The logical way would be keeping only one or two experienced members in the playing 11 as anchors for the young lads. Thoughts?
Yes, I hope so, because for a long time, CSK have jokingly been referred to as Dad's Army. And actually, Robin Uthapur has retired. Dwayne Bravo's not in there anymore. That brings the average age down by about 20 years. Like it's not hard to do that. And you could see last year that Chennai are actually trying to, look at a succession plan, like with Ruturaj Gaikwad being that opener position. Shivam Dubey had quite a good year for them. They're both young players. And then trying to pass down to Jadeja as that captaincy was a marked idea. Dhoni's still in there, obviously. Moeen Ali's there. That's some, real experience that they have. But yeah, I agree. I think that should be Chennai's approach. Whether it will or it won't, who knows? I think if they can pick up some young talent from the auction, either overseas or Indian, that would super duper help that Chennai. Because as well, they do have to look at, this team isn't going to look the same in 2 or 3 years. And if Chennai still want to be a team that are challenging for the title, they're going to have young players, aren't they?
Yeah. And the other question, which I'm sure we're going to have mostly Indian viewers for this one, so we'll answer this one. It says, another controversy for you guys to give your opinions. It's from the Bangladesh-India match, and it's been given by Ruben Logan Nathan. Ruban Logan Nathan, there we go. Who says, Shreyas Iyer, his stumps lighted up when the ball hit it, but he was given not out because the bails did not drop down. Shouldn't a player be given out the moment the ball hits the stumps?
No, that's not the rule. That's not the law. The law is the bail must be dislodged. Now, I agree the bail has been dislodged, but if it hasn't been permanently dislodged, then is that out? That raises an interesting question. What if, right, you hit the stumps, the bail flies, spirals vertically upwards, and then lands perfectly back on the stumps? Is that out? No, it is not, because the bail has not been properly dislodged. So there you go. That's my opinion.
As a bowler, there's nothing more annoying than hitting the stumps or clipping the top of a bail and it's staying on. I think it happened to me twice last year, and both times I was fuming. It's so annoying. I think if it touches it in a tiny amount, the batsman should get sent packing, because they should put their bat in the way, not let it hit the stumps. That's my opinion.
There is there are arguments to suggest that maybe the bails should just be removed altogether, which just wouldn't be cricket, would it?
Don't like it.
Although saying that, LBW was invented in the 1700s, so I'm sure people before that was like, what's this rule? We've just been using our pads all day. So that one, thank you for that question. We love the controversial one, so keep them coming. And another controversial one, slightly controversial, from Humanoid, who says, come on, I just created 7 accounts. Why is it not 800 yet? And that is a brilliant
That's
question.
a great
Why
question.
are we not? Why are we not at 800 yet? Why is it almost the new year and we're not even at 1,000? Come on, let's have those subscribes, because we want them. Yeah. Also, another thing is we've been having a lot of questions about Friday's live stream, because we are live streaming the IPL auction. As far as we're aware, it's not being shown live in the UK on Sky Sports or anything similar to that. However, we're going to do something to get it, whether it's like a VPN or something. So there will be ways, especially for someone who who's watching, who's not in India either. So there are options there for people. But if you don't have it and you just want to listen to us talk about the auction, then please follow the live stream and listen to us waffle about cricket, because it's what we love to do. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you comment. More C&Qs, please. And anything else?
No, that's it.
This
Brilliant.
video is brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN allows you to
We
watch
wish.
live streams.
No
in
free
different
promo.
countries.
It's really not.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. We are at Cricket Nerds Pod on all social media. And yeah, see you later.
See you guys.